Some hope today for Newcastle in the wake of the BHP closure, with a jobs plan hatched in the office of local member Bryce Gaudry. According to local member for Murrumbidgee Adrian Pickley, the regional makeup of Newcastle and Griffith is very similar. But even better for Newcastle is the fact it may be able to capitalise from Griffith's job sector, with positions in all areas up for grabs.
In a country like Australia, when you've got unemployment in other areas like Newcastle, people with skilled trades, it just seemed obvious to me that we should try and link the two.
Meantime, Energy Australia also boasted a jobs creation plan today when it announced it would diversify into gas and telecommunications. The business's call centre has already created up to 150 jobs in the last 12 months, with another 30 expected to come online.
And these kind of call centre jobs is where the growth potential is. And we're going to outbound calls in Newcastle. That is, we're ringing the world to sell our products out of here.
The company's attempting to establish itself as a multi-utility facility. Helen Kapalos, NBN News.
Classes cancelled. The only notes for students called for support for striking teachers. 6 months of enterprise bargaining has not delivered an agreement.
They've offered us a pay rise which is hopelessly inadequate, and they were able to afford a better pay rise.
The University of Newcastle has offered 9.7% in increases over 3.5 years. The acting Vice-Chancellor says academics won't be getting any more.
No matter how much industrial action there is, it cannot produce any extra money to pay for extra pay rises. So there will be no increase in the offer.
Sydney University teachers have just settled on a 14.7% pay rise over 3 years. Students and staff at Newcastle say academics need at least a 12% increase over the same period to maintain standards for future generations.
We're moving down the path where this university will well and truly become a second-rate university with second-rate academics with second-rate pay.
10 years down the track, if you're a graduate of this place, you'll be struggling to get your degree recognised.
The university doesn't agree.
We're certainly not being relegated to any second class. Our conditions are as good as anywhere, and our pay is the second highest offer in the country.
Rolling stoppages will continue on Newcastle and Central Coast campuses for the rest of the week. David McElwain, NBN News.
The Spears Point raid came about as a result of search warrants on a number of houses in the Lambton area. Detectives today sorted through the stash, which featured air tools including a nail gun, paintings, camera and video equipment and a bay window. A number of firearms were also seized after a sniffer dog found the cash hidden in a wall.
They confiscated 9 firearms and associated ammunition. 5 of the firearms at least are prohibited as a result of the amount of bullets that they can carry. The magazines are beyond the legal limits.
Drugs were also recovered from the house.
There was a great deal of drugs found. Cannabis leaf was the main thing that was found. It's also been seized by police.
A 43-year-old man has been charged with a number of firearm and theft offences. Waratah detectives are now appealing for anyone who may have had property stolen recently to come forward and identify their goods. Amanda Bolger, NBN News.
Receivers appointed at Scone Fresh Meats briefed workers yesterday on the company's multi-million-dollar debt problem, telling them that unless the plant can be sold as a going concern, the 80 remaining jobs will be lost. In recent years, the company has received over $160,000 in state government assistance. But according to Hunter Development Minister Richard Face, there's still substantial funds available to the company that haven't been claimed.
There was an offer made in monetary terms and various other aspects that we could assist them. Surprisingly enough, they didn't even get back to us on the basis of taking that offer up one way or the other.
Scone Council will hold an extraordinary meeting tomorrow night to discuss giving the ailing plant some financial breaks. But the Minister hopes the receivers will take advantage of the remaining funding from the Department of State and Regional Development.
If it goes some way to keeping this afloat so that it can be sold as a going concern, then at the end of the day we'll have saved most of the jobs.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
So it's just a whole lot of situations you often see men in, and to just sort of give so women get a chance to see some of the, not so much secret men's business. I think it's pretty much out there, but it's done in a pretty funny way. And
Watching Jamie Pittman train, the first thing you notice is how hard he hits. The second is his focused stare. The prospects of fighting at the Sydney Olympics have a lot to do with both.
I've had my eyes on it for a few years now, and then when I've got it in reach, it made me even more confident and more determined to get it.
Fitter and stronger than ever, the teenager just gone 18 is fresh from a 2-month stint at the Australian Institute of Sport.
It's a good experience being down there, sparring the best in the country.
Neville Short is Jamie's mentor, but now he shares the coaching with the AIS. While the combination is working well, other boxers in his Broadmeadows stable are also making their mark.
We've got the national titles in Darwin on the 12th to the 15th of November. We've got Jamie Pittman and Gavin Lowcock. They won the current state, and they're off to the Australian titles.
The Nationals are another step on the long road to Olympic selection.
The games are only around the corner, and you're getting a lot of good fighters that give it away, and now they're back in the training again for the 2000 games. So it's hard.
Outrageous, unfair, disastrous. These were the words flying around Newcastle University's campus today in the wake of the radical fee restructure proposal. Newcastle students joined their Sydney counterparts in fiercely opposing the plan, claiming it would be the death knell for regional tertiary education.
The University of Newcastle has one of the highest proportion of students from a less wealthy background. It's students such as these who just can't afford to pay $15,000 a year for university degrees.
Student Association President Michael Cashel says regional universities are largely made up of students from working class backgrounds, and changing the fee system will effectively block them out.
If enacted, that would create the most unfair and expensive university system in the world. Over the past 3 years, under the policies of this government, students have been asked to pay more and more for their education, thereby reducing the ability of students from a less wealthy background to get a decent education.
The association is sending a clear message to the federal government. Students will not tolerate an elitist education system.
But we can assure Dr Kemp that if they continue with these outrageous proposals, that they will be receiving the fight of their life. And I think that most students and most members of the community are absolutely outraged by these proposals and will fight them to the very end.
Amanda Bolger, NBN News.
Behaviour like this around the harbour has drawn one reaction from the new Lord Mayor.
If you want to play up and muck up and make a mess of our foreshore and restrict access to people who are genuinely there, it's not on.
And as requested by police, Council has responded with trial parking restrictions between 11 p.m. and 5 in the morning. They will be imposed along the foreshore east of Watch Street. And car parking looks set to continue as a pressing issue for Council. The Newcastle City Centre Committee is calling for more spaces.
The city centre needs another multi-storey car park, and we need it now.
The Lord Mayor agrees it's an issue but hasn't seen any plans yet. The City Centre Committee says it's looking for a joint commitment between council and private enterprise to fund a new car park.
They do have money in the tin, so to speak, about 1.4 million from surplus, and that's allocated to a car park.
David McElwain, NBN News.
Many hope the Sydney 2000 Games will be the cleanest Olympics for years, not just on a high level of sportsmanship, but a lower number of drug cheats. Already there are innovative plans in place to help catch those who cheat.
Previously, athletes were tested after they were in the village and after their event. For this time, for the first time ever, they are going to be tested before they get into the village. That's a huge step.
In Newcastle to discuss the issue of drugs in sport, Dr Brian Corrigan, who is on SOCOG's drug testing committee. While confident Sydney 2000 will be relatively drug-free, he admitted officials could be better armed with reliable testing procedures for the growing number of complex performance-enhancing agents.
To get the tests ready for the beginning of the Games, which is where the pressure is on to do, we're not too sure that we can do that yet.
Australia is one of the world leaders in testing for drugs in sport, and it will have its work cut out come September next year.
Our laboratory, again, is world-class laboratory, world-class scientists in it. They normally do 2,000 tests in 6 months. They're going to have to do 2,000 tests in 2 weeks.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
Moderately intellectually disabled pupils don't sit for a HSC. Instead, they see off studies in a far better fashion. Special school students from throughout the Hunter throw a celebratory concert, 1 year in the making. And whether it was the Beach Boys or Mexican hat dancing, every number was a hit with the audience.
Kids are having a ball. You will find that this is one of the best audiences that you'll ever come across at any concert.
Meanwhile, recognition today for those who've served their country during war. No, not medals, but certificates of appreciation from the Departments of Education and Veterans Affairs for vets who've been sharing their experiences with school students. The Veterans in Schools program sees pupils visit the Waratah Mayfield RSL sub-branch, inspect war memorabilia and talk with ex-servicemen and women. Today, Katara South Year 6 students became the latest in a long list of children to take part.
For the last 2 years, we've spoken to just on 3,000 students and a total of about 30 schools, so it's come along really well.
The Department of Veterans Affairs would like to see the idea adopted Australia-wide. Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
Day or night, Hoons are prepared to flout police and council calls for responsible behaviour along the foreshore. Last night, a 20-year-old Spears Point man lost control of his meticulously restored Tirana, smashing it into the lifeguards' pavilion. The write-off isn't his only worry. Police expect to charge him with negligent driving. Lifeguard Warren Smith isn't surprised that such loutish behaviour caused an accident.
This is not just only at night time, it's happening in the afternoons regularly, it's happening on weekends, public holidays, and it's becoming very dangerous to the family and everyone using this beach here, and we've got to sit down and think about what we're going to do about this for the future.
His plan is to close the existing access road alongside the pavilion and provide new access to both the Nobby's Beach car parks from a road to be built near the Navy Training Centre. A service road to the lighthouse and the breakwater will be maintained. He says something must be done to make Newcastle's family beach safer.
You come in the morning and see what's happened here during the night, someone's going to get killed eventually.
David McElwain, NBN News.
Know how big it was, but it was enough to wreck me and the pot plant.
When the Knights enter Marathon Stadium, they know they run on with the support of countless supporters, and always watching on, 13-year-old schoolgirl Alicia Pepperall. Wheelchair-bound due to cerebral palsy, it hasn't dulled the Morpeth teenagers' enthusiasm for life and the Knights. Due for a new chair, Alicia refused to take anything but one that was all red and blue.
Well, I really wanted a red and blue wheelchair, so I told Mum off.
Alicia loves all the Knights, but especially Adam McDougall, and the winger says he has a soft spot for his fan as well.
Yeah, she's one of my number one fans, so I'll be looking forward to seeing her next year here in this chair. It should be great.
Conditions in the water were far from ideal, a 1 metre swell making competition tough for the young surfers. The event, however, still managed to attract some of the finest from the coast and surrounding regions. Meanwhile, at Foresters Beach, fellow junior surfer Samba Mann was showing he's got what it takes to rise to the top with an invitation to the prestigious Hawaiian World Junior titles.
The wave where they've got it is a really world-class wave, so hopefully we'll get good big waves.
Although Samba is used to the smaller Australian conditions, he's confident that he's in with a chance against fellow junior riders.
I like to push myself as hard as I can. I'm not going to go over there and, not put in 100%.
Even with $60,000 up for grabs at the event, Samba's mind is still on his training. Adam Harper, NBN News. With new trainer Barry Brown on board, as well as a new coaching lineup, things are looking good for the Coasties side.
We hope to be challenging for honours at the end of the season. As players, we always didn't like losing, and we want to be the same as coaches.
As the local hopefuls were put through their paces, the coaches watched on, picking out an under-18s, an under-21s and a first-grade side. Although the start of the season isn't till early January, it gives the sides time to train together as a team.
In the next 3 weeks we'll be working three nights a week, and in that time we'll finalise the squads, and that'll give us 8 weeks before the start of the competition to get them right.
At this stage, the Coasties will be playing the first game at the new Graham Park venue in an opener for the Newcastle Breakers side. A number of past players are expected to return to the field, giving the side a strong lineup.
With all the players that have come back, hopefully they can add a little bit more experience and toughen it up a little bit and get a few more positive results.
Adam Harper, NBN News.
It's plain to see just what kind of an imprint man has left on Stockton's sand dunes. Scarring the majestic dunes is rubbish, left behind by careless visitors or washed up from the sea.
We have a lot of glass bottles and they're our main problem. Even though glass is banned on Stockton Beach, people are still bringing it over and not taking it back with them.
Come Sunday, Port Stephens Council is hoping a small army of volunteers, including fishing and four-wheel drive enthusiasts, will again take part in the annual Stockton Beach clean-up.
We've attracted up to 500 people and they come from as far away as Dubbo, Katoomba, the Illawarra region and Port Macquarie.
Since the inception of the clean-up in 1996, volunteers have removed 88 tonnes of rubbish from the beach. This year a 10-kilometre stretch will be targeted, organisers hoping to make a small dent in erasing the traces of man's usage.
Stockton Beach is Australia, if not the Southern Hemisphere's largest coastal mobile sand dune system. It is a chance to come back and put something back into it.
As an added incentive, prizes worth $1,500 will be awarded to participants on the day. Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
It said money can't buy spirit, but it's a quality, rich and a low-budget Breakers squad, and it showed against the $1 million North Sydney-based team at the weekend. But it's consistency Coach Lee Sterry now wants to see.
We've got to make sure that our home ground record is first class.
Hosting NSL newcomers Auckland Kings this Friday night, Sterry plans to back up the club's first win of the season with its first victory at home and predicts some changes to the lineup will do the trick.
It's going to be tough because the way I'm thinking at the moment, one or two might make way, but they've certainly done a job up until now.
Newcastle sits 4 points off front runners Brisbane, but well placed in 5th position with a host of teams 1 point further back. But interestingly, for a team described offensive, Newcastle has the second best attacking record so far this season with 6.
People that say that the Breakers are defensive for mine in the last 12 months wouldn't know what they're talking about.
What people have been talking about, though, the performance of goalkeeper Bob Catlin, who was a top performer despite injury.
We laugh about it that I got him out of Rookwood Cemetery. There wasn't a lot of coaches willing to give Bob Catlin a gig, basically, and I knew he still had plenty of life in him. And to take the pitch still with an injury cloud sort of thing and perform like that just speaks volumes of the bloke.
Back at her home alley in Mayfield, it seemed almost a world away from the hype of Las Vegas, but for the newly crowned world number 1, it's still all sinking in.
Best day of my life. I can't explain it. It was awesome. I don't know, just can't explain it. It was a really good feeling.
And after missing Commonwealth Games selection last year, the 24-year-old was keen to show just how good she is.
Revenge is sweet, I guess. After missing the Commonwealth Games, I just took some time. I reassessed things and got myself sorted out a bit better.
Bradley has barely had time to enjoy her feat, returning to Australia only to steer New South Wales to the national team's title in Adelaide and eventually making it home last night. In fact, she bowled her 11th perfect 300 score game yesterday. Only 2 Australians have better records, and they're men.
I still think I could be a little bit better. I've still got a lot of things to work on, but yeah, best form of my bowling career.
After a rest, next on the list is the World Teams Cup in Dubai.
Today's stormy weather at Williamtown meant the skies were off limits for the $500 million aircraft, but on the ground it was all smooth sailing. The crew from the 961st Squadron carried out standard technical checks on the airborne warning and control aircraft, which is designed to trace movements up to 320 kilometres away.
We track, monitor, control all the fighters, tankers, as well as monitoring the enemy aircraft that are flying.
The Boeing 707 was refitted for military use during the 70s. On board, a crew of 20 record surveillance information picked up by a giant radar disc, which rotates every 10 seconds. The classified details are then radioed to battle headquarters. The AWACS has proven itself in combat above the skies of Bosnia, Kosovo and the Persian Gulf.
We deployed a crew of 21 personnel to the desert for approximately 45 days to continue to patrol the skies and enforce the UN no-fly sanctions.
The unit's current training exercise with the RAAF comes just months before Australia establishes its own AWACS squadron. The Prime Minister confirmed in April that Australia's airborne early warning and control aircraft will be based at Williamtown. The squadron will begin training in February and be fully operational by the year 2004. Vanessa Spark, NBN News.